Let's Talk Tunnelling is produced by XRJV and proudly sponsored by DC Adams Group, Why Safety Matters. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Tunnelling. Today's guest is Landis Winitana. Kia ora, bro.
Kia ora, bro.
So, righto, so let's talk tunnelling then. So, 89, straight out of school, you wanted to prove a point to your old man and say, no, I got this. So what was the first job you worked on and what was that all about?
That was at North Bondi, just right beside Bondi Beach there, the sewer tunnel. I was put straight onto the ball gang on a permanent night shift. We had a lot of, well, not a lot, there was Spanish and Italians, so working with those guys. And was stuck on permanent night shift. I only just walked in onto 18 sort of thing. I had to put my age up. I was told to put my age, on the application form. But you're not that young, because obviously you have to be a certain age to go underground. So fill out the application form and had to put a bit of another birth date up on there to make it look more attractive. So stuck on ball gang there for a couple of months. Then I got put up into the roadheader crew and got thrown on the shovel for about nearly a year and a half, 2 years on a shovel behind the roadheader, mucking out. So because we had to lay rails down for the sewage tunnel. It was a good job. Yeah, good job.
So, train of thought, obviously. Coming straight out of school, very daunting. First job, tunnelling, tough environment. Came to another country even. Like here you are back in New Zealand. You travelled to your old man's in Fiji and that, but in school holidays. But coming to Australia, first job, Sydney, big city, straight underground, ball gang, and wow, what do you think? What were you thinking? Do you remember your first thoughts? And what it was like for you?
Oh, I had been underground, when we were kids in it, because my father worked in those two-dummy jobs. So, we got taken underground right when you were a kid, when I was about 7 or 8. And that's where sort of, like they say, it's in your DNA, And there's other ones around, like, now it's my same age, they're on the same boat. So, it's in your DNA, if your family, because, there's a third generation now in our family. Young nephew's doing it now, so he's the third one. But he's been through it when you were young, so he sort of knew, that's why I knew what I was going to do when I left school. Yeah.
Righto then, so North Bondi out for sewage tunnel, and then you went to the coal mines after that. Why and what was that all about?
After Bondi, I came back to New Zealand. I was supposed to go down to Cornwall.
Oh, yeah.
I just turned 21 then, but I went back to Māori and sort of got tied up with the cousins and that, hanging out with them and just didn't want to leave. And one guy came up, a guy called Stan Coleman. He come to pick me up. He said, "Come on, boy, we're away." And I said, "No, I'm not going." So I didn't go. Hung around
down to
Māori.
Cromwell, you mean? He picked you up to go to Cromwell, come to Cromwell?
Yeah.
Oh, bugger.
Yeah. So I didn't go down.
Yeah.
Because all those, not old timers, but, the guys that in that industry at the time, they were pretty well respected guys. So, but I didn't go. So I ended up going back to Australia then, and I ended up up in North Queensland, there, central Queensland, up at North Quinella in the coal mines.
How'd you get that gig? What was going on there? Who'd you know?
The old man, you fellas up there. There's a guy called Ray Carter. He was working up there. He's one of the old timers now. He's still going around. Not many of them left these days. But he was up there. Then so he ended up working up there for a company called White Mining. It wasn't actually going into the coal. We were doing what they call the drifts, the 2 declines. So one was a drill and blast, and the other one was a roadheader. which they call the conveyor belt drift. Yeah, that was a 1 in 4 grade, about 2 kilometres decline, road header. Then the other drift was drill and blast, which is a 1 in 7 grade. Yeah, and it was way out in the bloody wops, you know, out in the outbacks there. So she was pretty an eye opener.
Yeah.
Yeah, in North Quinella there, yeah. I had to do a bit of ringing around and saying, sheesh, I'm on the road here now, what's the go? They all gave me the rundown, a few cousins, the old man. Yeah, they sort of picturised what the controls look like and push these buttons, and yeah, it was all right.
Obviously, back then, a lot different to nowadays with the guidance system, but you went all right and going all right, though? Like, how'd your first shifts go?
Yeah, no, they weren't too bad, eh? You had the lasers run down the side and that, but then you had all your experienced guys. They sort of, the ship boss will be there, do all the checks. Yeah, but back then, all they just wanted meters, you know, just move. They just wanted to see dust come off those heads. And that still applies today, really. When they see plenty of dust, they reckon that's plenty of money floating around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Righto, bro. We're so yeah, by then you've done a good 3 to 4 years, and then you headed to the Blue Mountains. What was that job all about?
Yeah, no, that was a good job, that one. Yeah. Again, that's where Stan Coleman was up there. And yeah, he got me the crank up there, so he ended up going up the Blue Mountains after Queensland. Yeah. The Blue Mountains, yeah, it's pretty well one of the best jobs I've been on out of all my tunneling career.
Oh. Well, that's a question I'm going to ask, or like I like to ask later on once you sort of tell me about your jobs and all that. But to nail it, you know, in your third job has been the best. What made it the best for you?
Oh, you had everything there, Dallas. You know, there was obviously you started off on a road header with the entrance. TBM came along. Then there was a little bit of drill and blast. So you had, you know, your 3 main ingredients for tunneling methods, you know, all on a one job, which is pretty rare back in those days, or even pretty well rare now, really. But yeah, everything was, yeah, just ran so well, you know. Management was good. Superintendent was good. Hard man, but a fair man. Yeah, was an Irishman. His name was Bob Gowan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping to get Bob on, actually. He, yeah, I think I've persuaded him. So, yeah, hopefully he can tell us a bit more from his perspective too. So, yeah, looking forward to his one.
Yeah, no, he knew how to run jobs there back in those days, you know. He was, sometimes he was still in the game. He might end up, you know, whack a few fellas into shape in the industry these days. But, yeah, oh well, we've got to move forward now, eh?
So, Landis, you know, like working back in the late 80s, early 90s, and you've touched on, you know, some of the stuff that you did, like getting thrown on a road header and working, you know, behind the road header, shoveling and everything like that. So I'm just interested to know what it was like on shift in those days compared to, say, nowadays on shift. What was it like working in tunneling 25, 30 years ago?
Yeah, back in those early days, yeah, you just had to, you know, put your head down and ass up. That's all they wanted. You just had to work and work and work. Yeah. All they worried about back then was making sure that you come to work every day, no matter what. You know, the old man used to say the only time you don't come to work is when you get, you know, when you're time to get put down the hole. You just got to turn up to work every day. I don't care. But yeah, obviously meters were a big part of the industry back in those days. You just chase those meters. And I reckon it was good fun for me at that time. You know, we were only young at that time, so you didn't really just follow the rest of the crew really and try and keep up with them really.
Wow.
Yeah.
So from that Blue Mountains job, you went to that M2 motorway tunnel. I had Nigel in a couple of episodes ago, and he talked about that job in detail. Actually, gave us a good rundown. He mentioned you being a roadhead operator on that job. So, what was it like for you cutting on the M2 there, that M2 project?
No, that was a good job with Nigel. See, that was a pretty well organised job with Peabody's. The cutting was good. The whole setup was pretty well. Yeah, no, it was good. So, I was cutting, was it on an S200? The old man was the cross shift, so we used to race. So, chasing meters. So there was that point I had to prove. Yeah. So he raced like hell, but yeah, the old man had been off the machine for a while, but yeah, I suppose he'd like to keep me on my toes, I suppose. So yeah, he always had this competition, plus with the other shifts next door, the other drive team. But yeah, I don't recommend it really.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because you're brought up in different eras, in that industry. Yeah. They were hard men back in those days.
Yeah.
And they try and keep that momentum going in some places.
What about for having a name as well, like your name, and you talk about your cousins, Stan Coleman coming to pick you up from Mahia, driving there and saying, get in, let's go. So you're well looked after. And I've heard about your old man. I never met him, but I've heard about him. I've even heard my father talk of him back in the Turangi days. So well respected, in the industry. It's just interesting for me to know what it's like for a son coming in. You touched on it earlier where your old man was like, you won't handle it, but you came in and to prove a point. Is that a good thing to do though, to come into the industry and try to prove a point, or what do you recommend in that regards? Do it like what you did, or be your own person?
Yeah, be your own person. Make your own name. Like, there'll be other people looking at it, even though they'll look at the name, they go, oh, that's so and so's son, that's so and so's boy. And you go, no, bugger this, You're your own man, so you got to make a name for yourself. You know what I mean? Obviously, with your grandfather and that too, Alice,
So, Landis, I'm going to go from that M2 job, and you ended up at the airport metro rail tunnel. Now, this was interesting. I didn't realise what went on there and what that job was all about. I knew there was a TBM, obviously, but the roadheader side that went from Green Square to Central, is that right?
Yeah. There's more like the hard rock side, because obviously I think that TBM they had from the airport side was only soft ground, BPB. We had transfer Boyds at that time. That was another interesting job.
Interesting, because you've done everything in it. I think, with your qualifications, you could probably run the country, man. So, what do you prefer doing? What method?
I reckon you got to stay and have your hand on the pulse on all of the methods these days. Because technology is just going forward all the time. So, I don't really have no preferences. Underground is underground, but obviously each one has got a different tempo. Obviously TBM, she goes pretty fast. Roadheaders will be like second, and drill and blast will be third. But you just keep in contact with all the technology out there these days. So most of my background has been roadheaders. I'm coming to a point where I'm over it. You know what I mean? Drill and blast, I don't mind. But all of them, it's pretty well. They're all challenging.
Yeah. you adapt? How do you, you might spend a year or two cutting on a road header, and then the next job, pipe jacking. Like, how do you adapt with that change?
Yeah, going to Bangkok and doing that pipe jacking job, micro tunneling, they like to call it these days, that was a different kettle of fish, that one. So, and obviously that was quite challenging too, but see, that's technology that was starting to move up in that time. You look at the pipe jacking these days, far out, it's just getting more unreal every time, all PLCs, computers, But yeah, then that Bangkok job there, the ground conditions over there was just, there was no solid ground. It was just like real thick grout.
Yeah. So what was your role when you went to, so you've been cutting pretty much from your second job in the coal doing the drift. Blue Mountains was you did the TBM launch and everything there too, didn't you? But that was road headers. And then straight into M2 on a S200, so a smaller Mitsui, cross-shifting your old man, and stayed on a road header, which would have got, did you have a 300 or 200 at the airport link?
Oh, they had what they called an Alpine, which is those Sandviks. One of the first ones, one of the big machines there, 105. Yeah. Was pretty well the first one that came into Australia.
Wow. So
God, you don't get stuck on one machine all the time on these jobs. There was always air leaking going around. Most of those jobs from Bondi right up to the airport link, we're still using air leaks for bolting.
Yeah.
A bit of drill and blast, and we used to do hand spray up the Blue Mountains there. I had to cover all bases. Got thrown on the road here. They got chucked up to the TBM. Got chucked up onto the shotcrete. So it used to get thrown around a bit. And it was good, so you had to keep in touch with everything that you jump on. Yeah, but you always got thrown on a pelican pick, no doubt about that. I was given an opportunity. I was only young, geez, we were still in our early 20s, and got a job offer to go overseas. So, and obviously being in Thailand, so being single and that, you can imagine what could happen in those kind of places.
Plenty of work. Oh,
that's right. That's what you're there for, and that's what you call staying focused, eh?
Yeah.
But we knew all the management were there. It was the same company that was on Blue Mountains there, McConnell Dow. Yeah, so same superintendent and same bunch of guys that went up there. So our role were pipe jacking foremen, operators. So, but not like Benny. He was on the small machines, and we put on the big ones. Our one was about 2.5 meter.
I reckon he got set up with that, eh? I said that on his podcast. They must have been looking for the smallest man in tunneling, and then they grabbed him.
Funniest thing is we had 6 machines. Our smallest one was 800. So we had an 800, a 1 meter, a 1200, a 1500, 2 meter, and a 2.5 meter.
Yeah.
I did get thrown on the 800 machine one time, then I said, nah, pretty well I said, man, you got the wrong fella for this job.
So explain to people, like Benny did it, and he did a great job of it. So how do you operate these micro tunnels or bloody pipe jacking machines? How do they go? Like,
well, with the small machines there, which are what they call an AVN, you drive those from the surface, and the actual TBM is just like a drill bit on a drill, Then you drop pipes down the shaft, which is like adding on a drill steel, extension steels. So you just keep adding those. So you had like 2 pipes go up the guts of your machine, and sort of one feeds water. So it gives you the water to cut the slurry for you up on the head, and the other one that discharges it. So it's like two concrete pipes, really. So one feeds water to the face, and it just acts like a drill bit. So it gives you water, and it sort of mashes all your slurry up on the front of the head, and it sucks it all out with your return pipe, and goes up into these tanks up on the surface. And pretty well from there on, but yeah, then you just pretty well drive the machines from up the surface. But then if you end up having trouble with that, then sometimes you have to go and sort of climb your way up there. Yeah, especially was only on those small machines for a little bit, and bugger this. You couldn't even turn around. You pretty well had to crawl up and sort of reverse your way back out.
You ended up back at LPG gas cabins. Now, is that our gas?
Yeah, Botany. Yeah, Port Botany.
Because I remember people talking about this job. You had a massive shaft there, that you dug. Is that right, or am I on the wrong job?
I came when they were doing out the cabins. They were putting in like these, 4 big cabins. They can end up being like gas tanks underground or LPG. They did start off with shafts. Pretty well hard yakka going down those shafts. That was all drill and blast. Well, the whole job was drill and blast. Yeah.
What
she was.
Yeah. What was your involvement there? What did you have to do for that, for the cabins?
I ended up being a shockreader. Used to be the shockreader operator. Yeah. They used to do only 8-hour shifts back those days. They done a bit of spraying on, a J-con midgets.
Yeah. So we had Liam telling us about spraying, but so you've been an operator on these road headers, pipe jacking, and then you come back and you end up on a shotcrete rig. What do you have to do there? What's obviously you excavate, bolt up, same processes nowadays, or was it different back then?
Yeah. Wow. It was blasting at our gas, so you used to blast, and sometimes you'll have to spray it, then bolt it. Because the ground was all just fractured everywhere with the blast.
Yeah. So your first application was to spray it just to keep it contained, and
yeah, but we were putting bolts up left, right, and centre in there. She got a bit overkilled on that job with bolting. Yeah.
And then you headed to the Eastern Distributor, back cutting, or were you still spraying?
No, I ended up getting back on the machine again for the same mob that was in Thailand. Same superintendent, McConnell and Dow.
Yeah, I didn't realise there was 2 sections to that. I think I jumped the gun when I was talking to Nigel about that cabin and how big it was, because I've had a couple of versions of Eastern Distributor, but Nigel talked about the on and off ramps, and then the other mob did the cabins and all that. So what were you on?
Yeah, we were on the main lines. Yeah, on the big cabin. Yeah, she was a monster, that drive. Pretty well a double deck, really. Just one big hole. Yeah.
Righto. So let's talk about opening a cabin up. Like, as you know, these projects that we've been on lately, and we'll talk about them later with the 3A and things like that. But we're going back, late 90s or late 80s, even 90s. Late 90s. So you open up a massive cabin, like even Benny said, wow, you just couldn't believe how big it was. So can you tell us, especially from a roadhead operator's perspective, how do you cut them out, and what's the actual process? Can you describe what you have to do?
Well, we went down one side. We had 2 lots of ventilation, so we had one, on the side of the drives. So you sort of done a pilot down one side, come back, then you go on to the other side, And on the other ventilation, then you sort of left a pillar in the middle. Yes, and you just cut down say the other side, say the right hand side, then come back, then you start taking out the pillar. You never took the whole face out as you went because it was just too big. And that was the top heading. That's like the top tunnel.